Nottingham Forest have had a £9.5 million bid rejected for the Galatasaray winger. But just how good is he? Welcome to your transfer news. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Whatever time of day you're watching this, hope you're having a fantastic day. And welcome to your latest Nottingham Forest transfer news. In today's video, we'll be talking about a player who Forest have had a bid rejected on and are likely to go back in for him. But just how good is he? We'll be giving you the latest on Callum Hudson-Odoi, as Forest is still extremely interested in the winger. And there's a player who will be coming back to Forest very shortly, but how long will he be staying at the club before he's moved on again? Before we get into all of that, please don't forget to hit that like button. If you are new to Forest Fan TV, don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to grab your signed framed Forest shirt tickets with LEDs, with TVs, all included in it. It's absolutely brilliant. Go check the link in the description down below. All right, let's jump into this and let's start with this rejected bid. Okay, so Kerem Akturkoglu, who has been linked with Nottingham Forest. In fact, it's gone a stage past that. A bid was put in for him for £9.5 million, and this was rejected. Forest are expected to go back in, as it feels like the first bid was a toe in the water kind of bid, because Galatasaray want in and around €15 million for the player. So Forest will have to improve their offer, but not by too much, to potentially get this deal done. Now, who the hell is he is probably what you're asking, and have you guys ever heard of him? Well, let me talk you through him. This is a player that about a year ago was heavily scouted and linked to the likes of Arsenal, Spurs and Liverpool, all of which were sending out scouts to watch him. Galatasaray, who at that time were playing quite crap, he was the one shining light coming out of them, scoring bag loads of goals and assists for them in that previous season. Roll on next 12 months and Galatasaray sort themselves out. They've won the league comfortably, and Kerem has been one of the driving forces behind it, getting in total, let me just double check the stats here, 10 goals and 14 assists. Now, he operates heavily on the left-hand side. He's an inverted winger, cuts in on his right foot quite a lot, but can use his left foot to a certain extent. He's more attacking than he is defending. I'll chuck a quick heat map out here for you. There you go, more stats and stuff to help you guys visualize it. And as you can see from the heat map, he does spend most of his time in and around the middle third to the final third of the pitch and doesn't track back too much. Now, in terms of his strengths and weaknesses, he is pretty nippy and pretty quick. I quite like the profile of him as a left winger. He can provide goals and he can score them, and he can take a dead ball as well. He's not too bad from free kicks. He's still quite savvy with his left foot, but his predominant foot is clearly his right one. And overall, he's a decent left winger. He has torn it up in the Turkish league. But the age-old question still has to be asked. Just because you can do it in a Turkish Farmers League, and let me offend all the Turkish supporting fans there, can you do it in the Premier League? That is really the question, and that's probably why Forest need to be shipping and doing their deals in these kind of markets, where there is an element of risk involved to these kind of players. But it's one that you can probably take a risk at when you're only looking to spend between 10 and 15 mil to bring that type of player to the Premier League. Now, would I take him? Yes, because it's looking like Dennis is probably on his way out. We told you yesterday about the links to Leeds United. Go check yesterday's video if you haven't already, or just check it after this video. That probably makes more sense. So Forest still do need to recruit on this left-hand side. And with the amount of goals and assists he could potentially bring, it is going to be potentially less risky. But the transfer over to the Premier League is the main thing. Now, we've seen players who have come to the Premier League for Forest and been able to bring that form in. I'll give you Taiwo Awoniyi, for example, from last season, scoring 15-odd goals in the Bundesliga, then coming into the Premier League and still managing a decent return in double figures, having missed many months with injury. So it is feasible that this can happen. But what's going to be his struggle is probably, for me, physicality. He's quite a lean-framed person. He doesn't look too physical, and his ball control isn't his best asset. And therefore, could he be bullied off the ball quite easily? He's the kind of player who does like to cut in, run with the ball, take a shot, put a ball across low. Usually, most of his crosses are low. And that is what Forest tend to do anyway in our day in, day out play. You never see high balls whipped in that frequently. I mean, the only one I can think of that comes to mind was Lodi's cross for Awani against Chelsea. So in theory, his profile does fit the style of play for Nottingham Forest. But the real question is, will it work? And that's an answer that we won't actually know until or if it does happen and he's put to the sword in the Premier League. So would I go for him? Yeah, I do like him. I do like him. I do have my doubts. He's nowhere near my top of my shopping list. But maybe it could work. And maybe these are the kinds of players that Forest need to bring in. Now, the other thing I need to say about it is that we are only about 2 weeks away from the first friendly, and that's against Notts County. And by the way, all those tickets have sold out already, which is, I mean, what did you expect from our amazing fan base? But Forest have said they want to do their business early. They want to get the players in, give them a full preseason, help them gel with the club, etc. If, for example, Kerem were to come in, I don't know if he's an English speaker or not, but you need to account for that bedding in period. And the longer you have over the summer to do that, the better it works out. So I am getting a little twitchy about this transfer window. Look, I know a lot of you are going to say it's early doors, the international window doesn't open for a couple of days, etc. But there's not been enough movement for me. For players going out or players coming in, I personally would have expected to see at least 2 or 3, established players or players who Forest want to move on to have already been moved on. I'm looking at the likes of John Joe Shelvey as an example, and there's a couple of others that we all know probably are moving on. And there's been no real links to those players leaving yet, and that does worry me a little. I think Forest are probably looking to ship out 7 to 10 players. And that in itself is really hard to do. Just look at Manchester United. Look how much deadwood they've been carrying for years. Phil Jones, Maguire, Eric Bailly, all those kinds of players who have been there and available, and just no one is interested. Now, yes, that scenario is different because they come with stupidly high wages because Manchester United is a stupid club, as we all know. But Forest don't have that problem. But the problem is the caliber of the players aren't that great that we're looking to ship on. So those players are probably going to have to take a step down in division, for example. And when you do that, the wage impact does come into play. Because if we look at a Shelvey, for example, he's rumored to be on about 60 to 75k a week. If no one from the Premier League wants him and he needs to move down to Championship, let's just say, I'm not saying he is a Championship level player, just using him as an example. No Championship team is going to pay that amount of wages for him. They just can't simply afford to do it. So it is going to cause a bit of a headache for Nottingham Forest. But I would really have expected 2 or 3 players already to have been at least linked to moving out. And at the moment, we're not hearing that. Yes, we've heard the Dennis link, but again, that's to Chelsea. Dennis is on a decent weekly wage. To Leeds even. Dennis is on a decent weekly wage. Can Leeds afford that in their peril situation being in the Championship? Unlucky Leeds. So it's a little messy. But bringing it back to Kerem, I probably would take the risk. Now, is that me saying it out of desperation or impatience in terms of I want to see some business happening in the transfer market? Maybe. But I do like this player and I do kind of know him and I've seen him play quite a few times. Look, I'm not a massive watcher of the Turkish league, but I have seen Galatasaray quite a bit. And he does sometimes end up carrying them. He is a bit of a catalyst on that left-hand side. And I've said it. For probably the last 2 years, I've been moaning about how one-dimensional we are down the right-hand side, where we're always relying on getting the ball to Jono down that right-hand side, etc. And it becomes predictable. So bringing someone like Kerem in would potentially give us balance, a crossover to the left-hand side, and then Forest can be more than one-dimensional. So I am up for this left winger, but maybe the next guy we're going to talk about would be more suitable. Get your thoughts in down below. Okay, so the next winger we're going to talk about is one who's been linked before, and that's Callum Hudson-Odoi. Chelsea seem to have set their price now in and around the £15 million mark. He was rumoured to be somewhere around that. The initial talks were about 10 million. And you've got now the likes of Forest, Fulham and AC Milan who are sniffing around him. Now with AC Milan having recently bought Loftus Buttcheeks, potentially they may see themselves now out of the race. And this one could be between Forest and Fulham. But with Forest being linked to Kerem and Hudson-Odoi being predominantly a left winger himself, maybe Forest are weighing this up because both players are about the same value, about somewhere in between that 10 and 15 million pound mark. And what are his pros and cons compared to Kerem? Well, obviously he's played in the Premier League. He's prem proven, as that phrase always comes up about. But with me, is he as good? Yes. But my biggest concern with him is injuries. He's been out for quite a while, injured in and out of that Chelsea team. In fact, he hasn't really even held a first team position down for that long at Chelsea. But he is still young. He is 22 and he can do a job. And it is the kind of profile player that Steve Cooper would probably get the best out of. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. If you put me on the spot and ask me which player I would rather have, I don't know. I like them both. They've both got their traits. I do prefer how much more attacking Kerem is. And for me, I feel I've been starved of attacking football over the last 12 months. So I'd probably lean slightly towards Kerem. But at the same time, I would understand the pros that the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi can bring to Nottingham Forest. So I'd be happy either way. Look, let me be honest with you guys right now, yeah? I just want players in the door. I want players out the door and I want players in the door, and I want it to happen sooner rather than later. I can feel the frustration building up in me, and no doubt if we haven't seen any movement in the next 7 days, there'll be a rant video coming. Let's hope we don't get to that stage. But right now, honestly, I would take either one as long as we can get it over the line and push it quickly. Where do I see Callum Hudson-Odoi ending up? I think he would probably end up at Fulham. West London is Fulham. Obviously, Chelsea's round the corner from it. It's an easy move for him to make. You got the likes of will.i.am, who can play left or right. Probably needs to be retired with that Zimmer frame of his, even though he's still producing the goods for Fulham. But overall, I reckon he may end up there, and I reckon Forest will end up with Kerem. And I wouldn't mind him. I don't mind these unknown entities that have potential. Yes, there's a little risk about it, but it does make it quite exciting. But if you had to pick between the two, which would you go for? Would you go for the known entity, or would you go for the one that most people probably haven't heard of? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, let's move on to a player who may be returning back to Forest, but may not be staying that long. And who am I talking about? None other than Lewis O'Brien. Lewis O'Brien, the season at the MLS is set to finish in the next couple of weeks. And after that, he will be returning to Nottingham Forest. It is quite likely that they will give him a break of a week or two just to catch his breath, because he's been playing throughout the summer. But then the question is going to come. Is Cooper going to forgive him, or is Yates going to forgive him, or whoever he fell out with? Are they going to all hug and kiss and make up? Or are we still going to see this outcasted Lewis O'Brien when he returns to Nottingham Forest? It's clear to see, I don't care what anyone says, there has definitely been a falling out, and one that couldn't be reconciled, because that's why he got shipped out. If you remember in the January window, Forest were looking to send him over to Blackburn, and that deal fell through with the whole fax machine stuff or whatever caused the issue. So Lewis O'Brien coming back, I would like to see him in the squad. Look, we got and released the likes of Colback, etc. And I've always thought O'Brien was a better player than Colback. I know some of you will probably disagree with that, but whatever, each to their own. But for me, he still has a place in the squad. I may give up the fact that he's not a first team name there, but I will not give up the fact that he has qualities that worked at the start of last season, but before the whole charades about the fallout and everything. And I think if they could patch up, and they should patch up, it's for the greater good of the team. So they need to start thinking about long-termism and the bigger picture. Now, having said all of that, shock horror, there are clubs that are interested in him. And the likes of Sheffield United have already been linked to Lob. And Sheffield United, with their prick of a manager, who is very, very keen and very much an admirer of what Lewis O'Brien does on the pitch, may look to seize on this opportunity with the unsettlement around Lewis O'Brien. So could Sheffield United come in? Yes. Would O'Brien consider that? Maybe, especially as where Sheffield is and he's lived there a few years back in his days at Huddersfield, etc. It's not exactly a million miles away. And the fact that he shipped himself and his family across to America for a quarter of the year last year kind of makes sense. That, he's up still for moving. His family is still quite young, is still quite mobile. So a move away from Nottingham Forest wouldn't entirely be off the cards. But for me, I still want him as a Forest player. However, the flip side to this is Forest do need to generate some income. And O'Brien can probably still pull somewhere in around 7 to 10 million pounds, which isn't small change for Nottingham Forest currently. Forest do have to consider their financial situation. We will be doing a video at some point in the next few days on FFP, because there are a lot of question marks about Forest and where they stand with FFP, etc. So we'll try to get that across to you and make sure we explain to you where we think the situation is. But my personal opinion is O'Brien should stay. But if Forest do need to generate some cash, he may be the player they turn to because there is still some value about him. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested in this from you. Would you keep O'Brien or would you sell him off? Give us a yes, no in the comments down below. Okay, that brings you up to speed with all your latest Nottingham Forest news. I can't wait to get into the comments and read all your thoughts. At the moment, I'm struggling to reply to everyone, so please accept my apologies, but I promise you I'm reading each and every comment as they come through. If you got this far in the video and you've enjoyed the content, please don't forget, if you haven't already, to hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new here. And can I say a massive thank you to all our members, all our supporters, all our subscribers. Without you, you do not make this channel possible. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video. And come on, you Reds.